Imagine an indie studio, like essentially backing their massive corporate publisher into a corner, legally forcing them to hand over a $250 million payday just because a game sold a little too fast.
Oh, it is completely wild.
Right. Or consider a major developer deciding that the absolute best way to secure their financial future is to resurrect a 12-year-old game, just to buy themselves enough time to finish their next massive sequel.
It's a crazy juxtaposition. I mean, you have the indie sector completely rewriting the rules of corporate acquisitions. All these legacy studios are simultaneously pushing the boundaries of modern hardware and falling back on like decade-old safety nets.
Yeah, we've got a massive stack of sources in front of us for this deep dive. I mean,
Yeah.
we're looking at publisher blogs from Activision and CD Projekt Red. We've got
Yep.
internal corporate memos leaking out of the executive suites at Xbox, and comprehensive news roundups from Metacritic, Eurogamer, Windows
A
Central.
lot of reading this week.
So much reading. The mission for today is to just cut through the noise of what has been a completely landscape-altering final week of May 2026. We are unpacking the biggest drops, the wild corporate drama, and the titles you actually need to care about.
Exactly.
So I have to ask you, the listener, right now, are you ready to do a serious audit of your backlog? Because this week is going to demand a massive reshuffle.
Oh, for sure. And the best place to start that reshuffle is by looking at what gamers are actually playing and reviewing right now, because the critical reception this week provides a really fascinating snapshot of where the industry's quality bar currently sits,
Yeah.
particularly with the launch of 007 First Light.
Oh man, the buzz on this launch has been inescapable. It dropped on May 27th, and the sources show it's sitting at an 87 on Metacritic.
Which is huge.
Massive launch day sales figures, too.
I look at this and I just wonder how they managed to bypass the legacy trap.
The GoldenEye shadow. Exactly. Every single James Bond game for the last 25 years has lived in the massive, overbearing shadow of that GoldenEye N64 cartridge. Is this finally the true spiritual successor the community has been waiting for?
See, it's an interesting comparison, but the reason First Light is succeeding and sitting at an 87 is precisely because it actively refuses to be a spiritual successor to GoldenEye.
Interesting.
Yeah, previous developers, they fell into this trap of trying to replicate an arena shooter formula that was revolutionary in 1997, right? But it feels deeply antiquated today.
Right. You just can't play like that anymore.
No, you can't. What the developers did here was step back and ask, how do we simulate the feeling of being the world's most capable spy using modern fluid action-adventure mechanics?
Oh, so they pivoted the whole genre.
Completely. They didn't just rely on the IP to sell copies. They built a fundamentally robust stealth action framework that just happens to star James Bond.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you can't capture lightning in a bottle twice by using the exact same bottle.
Precisely.
But as impressive as an 87 is for a licensed AAA game, the scoreboard completely shifts when you look at what dropped today, May 29th. Mina the Hollower.
Oh, yeah.
A retro-styled 8-bit action-adventure from the developers of Shovel Knight. It is currently sitting at a staggering 92 on Metacritic.
A 92 is just incredible.
It is officially one of the highest-rated titles of the entire year.
Yeah.
I look at Mina and I think of it as like premium gaming comfort food. But we see this happen constantly. Why do these 8-bit retro-styled indie games consistently outscore massive multi-million-dollar juggernauts?
Well, it ultimately comes down to the relationship between scope and polish. When a studio sets out to make an 8-bit top-down action game, the mechanical boundaries of that world are incredibly rigid.
Right. There's only so much you can actually do on the screen.
Exactly. The physics are simple, the camera is fixed, and the interaction systems are highly contained. Because the scope is so tightly defined, a talented team has the time and resources to iterate on those core mechanics until they are mathematically flawless.
Whereas AAA development is just...
It's a constant battle against scope creep.
Right, because modern AAA games are trying to be cinematic narrative masterpieces, open-world exploration playgrounds, and incredibly deep RPGs, all at the exact same time.
Yeah, the surface area for bugs, pacing issues, and feature bloat in a massive 3D open world is exponential. Mina the Hollower earns a 92 because it identifies exactly what experience it wants to deliver and executes it without a single wasted frame of animation.
Which is so refreshing.
It is. I should also note that Forza Horizon 6 dropped recently and is sitting comfortably at a 91, which actually reinforces this point perfectly.
Oh, because it's so focused.
Yes, racing games have a highly specific, focused scope, driving highly detailed cars through a defined environment. When you don't have to program complex AI dialogue trees or branching narratives, you can polish the driving mechanics and the visual fidelity to an absolute mirror shine.
It's the difference between doing one thing perfectly and doing 10 things reasonably well.
Eh,
But while focused indies and tightly scoped licensed games are dominating the critical scoreboards this week, the ultimate commercial titan of the industry just flipped the table to reveal its hand for the fall.
Oh, Call of Duty.
Yeah, Activision officially pulled the curtain back on Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 4, which is launching on October 23, 2026.
They are bringing some very aggressive changes to both their narrative approach and their underlying technology.
I saw that. The campaign sounds intense.
It is. It's venturing into politically tense territory, centering around a North Korean invasion of the South. You play from the perspective of a young South Korean soldier named Private Park while dealing with a completely rogue Captain Price operating off the books.
Wow.
But the far more controversial shakeups are happening under the hood in multiplayer, specifically with a new engine feature they are calling Ballistic Authority.
Okay, yeah. According to the developer blogs, the pitch for Ballistic Authority is, quote, no bloom, no guesswork, true bullet trajectories.
Yeah.
They are promising that wherever your weapon is pointed, that is exactly where the bullet physically travels in the game space, even if you are firing from the hip. But I have to push back on how they are framing this.
Okay, how so?
Well, the competitive community has been arguing about the mechanics of bloom for years. Isn't removing bloom just reverting back to how hardcore shooters used to operate?
I mean,
It feels like they are taking away a frustrating mechanic they purposely introduced to lower the skill gap, and now they're trying to rebrand its removal as this, revolutionary technological leap.
it is definitely a clever bit of marketing spin, I will give you that. But functionally, it actually represents a massive shift in their physics engine. To understand why this matters to you as a player, we have to look at how hit detection has evolved.
Okay.
In recent years, developers relied heavily on bloom, which is essentially an invisible, randomized cone of probability projecting out from your weapon's barrel. It was designed to simulate the chaotic inaccuracy of fully automatic fire.
Right, making the game slightly more forgiving for casual players, because a highly skilled player couldn't just laser beam them from across the map.
Exactly. But the hardcore players despise it because it introduces RNG random number generation into a firefight.
It's the worst feeling. You
Yeah.
can have your crosshairs perfectly tracked on an opponent's chest, but because the server rolled the dice inside that invisible cone, your bullets just miss.
Precisely. By stripping away that probability cone and implementing Ballistic Authority, the engine is now calculating true physical projectiles with complex recoil patterns. If you miss, it is entirely because of your inability to control the physical recoil of the weapon.
Not because of a randomized dice roll.
Right. It actively raises the skill ceiling and signals a return to a purely skill-based gunplay model.
Which is going to absolutely thrill the competitive scene. And, they are leaning heavily into dynamic environments, too. The multiplayer reveal highlighted a new map called Kill Block.
Oh, this looks fascinating.
It really does. It's a live fire training facility built entirely from modular sections that physically reconfigure between rounds, creating over 500 distinct architectural layouts.
You can't just memorize the sightlines anymore.
Exactly. You have to adapt your spatial awareness in real time. Add in the return of the DMZ extraction mode and the fact that they are ditching the meme-heavy neon cosmetics to return to a grounded and transparent military aesthetic, and it feels like a very deliberate pivot.
It is a pivot designed to reclaim the hardcore tactical audience. But I think the most aggressive move Activision is making isn't about gameplay, it's about hardware.
Yes, the console drop.
Modern Warfare 4 is launching on the PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PC, and the Nintendo Switch 2. But they are officially abandoning the PS4 and the Xbox One.
Completely leaving them behind.
They are going so far as to announce that starting in Season 1, the free-to-play Warzone client will completely stop working on those last-generation consoles.
I have to highlight the sheer irony of this platform strategy, though. Because, okay, they're ruthlessly executing the PS4 and Xbox One base, cutting off millions of potential players, because those consoles are supposedly too weak to handle this new vision of the franchise.
Right.
Yet, in the exact same breath, they're proudly porting the game to the Nintendo Switch 2. How does a handheld console make the cut, while traditional home consoles get left out in the cold?
I know it seems contradictory until you look closely at how modern game engines utilize hardware architecture. The PS4 and Xbox One are running on processors designed well over a decade ago.
Oh, the old Jaguar cores.
Exactly. They use older Jaguar cores that create massive architectural bottlenecks. They simply cannot process data fast enough to feed modern graphics cards. The Switch 2, while obviously not matching the raw teraflops or power draw of a PS5, is built on highly modern, efficient architecture.
So it's not just about raw horsepower. It's about how the system handles the data itself.
Exactly. Modern engines rely heavily on AI-driven upscaling technologies like DLSS or FSR and advanced memory streaming. These technologies allow weaker but modern chips to render games at lower internal resolutions and intelligently upscale them without losing visual fidelity.
And the older consoles just can't do that.
No, the 2013 architecture in the PS4 simply doesn't have the hardware-level instruction sets required to utilize those modern rendering pipelines. By severing ties with the old generation, the developers no longer have to compromise the core foundation of their engine to accommodate 10-year-old limitations.
So Activision is forcing a hard break from the past to drag their massive player base into current generation technology.
They are.
But what I find so fascinating is that while they're doing that, another industry giant is utilizing a completely opposite strategy. They are actively resurrecting a ghost from their past to buy themselves the runway they desperately need for the future.
Yeah, CD Projekt Red.
CD Projekt Red just announced that The Witcher 3, Wild Hunts, is getting a brand new, full-scale expansion called Songs of the Past.
And we are talking about a release slated for 2027.
Which is crazy.
That is a full 12 years after the base game originally launched in 2015.
A 12-year gap between a base game and a DLC expansion is practically unheard of. The sources indicate this is being co-developed with Fool's Theory and will introduce a completely brand new continent.
Which means it's going to require significantly beefier PC specs than the original game.
Right. And the narrative is being framed as a trip down memory lane like Geralt's final farewell. That will tie directly into the events of the upcoming The Witcher 4, officially setting up Ciri as the new protagonist.
It is a massive undertaking, and critically, the development of this 2027 expansion means that The Witcher 4 is being pushed all the way out to late 2028 or potentially even 2029.
Okay, here's where we have to look at the business strategy behind this, because my mind immediately goes to television.
Oh, how so?
Well, this feels exactly like a network bringing back a beloved hit show for a surprise finale 10 years after it ended, purely to set up a brand new spin-off series.
That is a really good comparison.
Is this a brilliant, calculated marketing bridge to keep the IP relevant? Or is this a massive red flag? Like, is CD Projekt Red absolutely terrified of moving on from Geralt, and they want to delay the new game as long as humanly possible to ensure they don't face another launch disaster like they did with Cyberpunk 2077?
It is almost certainly a strategic blend of both. CD Projekt Red learned a very public, very painful lesson regarding the cost of rushing a highly anticipated title to market.
Yeah, they really did.
But there is also a massive technological shift happening internally. They are abandoning their proprietary Red engine, which powered both The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk, and transitioning their entire studio pipeline over to Unreal Engine 5 for The Witcher 4.
Oh, wow. Retraining hundreds of developers on a completely new toolset takes an immense amount of time.
It does. By pushing The Witcher 4 to the end of the decade, they give their engineering teams the necessary runway to master Unreal Engine 5 so they don't launch a broken game.
Right.
However, a publicly traded studio cannot have its flagship fantasy franchise sit dormant, generating zero new revenue for 13 years.
Investors would panic.
Exactly. Songs of the Past solves multiple complex corporate problems simultaneously. It generates immediate cash flow, it reignites massive engagement from a dormant fan base, it neatly passes the narrative baton to Ciri, and it buys the core development team the years they need.
It is an incredibly pragmatic way to mitigate risk.
Yeah.
CDPR is carefully manipulating their intellectual property timeline to ensure they remain financially stable.
They're playing it very smart.
But, over in the independent survival crafting space, a much smaller studio just bypassed all that careful planning and completely blindsided their publisher. We need to dissect the financial shockwave caused by Subnautica 2.
Oh, this is undoubtedly one of the most compelling business stories of the year.
That's amazing.
Subnautica 2 launched into early access, and the player acquisition numbers are just staggering. In just 1 week, the game sold over 4 million copies.
4 million in a week.
Yeah, and to put that in perspective, 2.4 million of those players accessed the game via Xbox Game Pass, but the title still generated over $100 million in direct traditional sales revenue.
For an early access survival game, those numbers are astronomical. But the real story is the legal mechanism those sales triggered. Publisher Krafton had previously established a monthly revenue threshold for the game, sitting at $69.8 million.
Right.
When a studio signs an acquisition or publishing deal, there are often milestone contracts involved, correct?
Yes, they are called earnouts. When a massive publisher acquires a smaller studio or signs a major publishing deal, they rarely pay the full estimated value upfront. They want to mitigate their risk.
That makes sense.
So they agree to a base payment and then set financial milestones. The contract essentially says, if your game hits this specific revenue target, we will pay you this massive bonus.
Right, because they assume it won't actually go viral.
Exactly. Publishers set these targets incredibly high, usually assuming the game will perform well, but rarely assuming it will just absolutely explode like this.
But Subnautica 2 blew right past that $69.8 million threshold in a matter of days. As a result, the sources note that Krafton is now legally forced to pay developer Unknown Worlds a massive $250 million earnout.
Which is just a jaw-dropping amount of money.
And what makes this corporate drama so compelling is that Krafton reportedly tried to find a way out of paying it. The legal dispute behind the scenes actually forced the reinstatement of Unknown World CEO Ted Gill just to ensure the studio received the promised payout.
It perfectly illustrates the tension between publishers and developers. The publisher bets against the ultimate viral success of the game to protect their downside, and when the developer achieves a massive cultural hit, the publisher gets caught on the hook for a massive payout.
It's beautiful, honestly.
What's equally impressive is that the developers are using this financial leverage to strictly maintain their creative vision.
Right. Despite some vocal players in the community complaining that they want lethal weapons to fight the alien wildlife, Unknown Worlds is standing their ground. They are completely refusing to add combat mechanics, maintaining the strict no-killing ecological ethos that defined the first game. It is a massive victory for independent creative integrity, heavily insulated by a $250 million publisher payout.
That definitely helps cushion the blow of a few angry Reddit comments, but we also have to look at the other side of that success metric.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that 2.4 million of those Subnautica 2 players came through Xbox Game Pass.
I did, yeah.
That massive influx of players is a great headline for Xbox. But an internal memo from Xbox CEO Asha Sharma just leaked, and it provides a very sobering glimpse into the actual economics of game subscriptions.
Yeah, that memo was intense. It addresses the fallout from a highly controversial price hike Xbox implemented last year. Following that hike, Xbox experienced accelerated subscriber losses and a significant slowdown in growth. In response to the churn, they recently pivoted and implemented Game Pass price cuts. Sharma's memo confirms that those recent cuts have successfully improved retention and brought acquisition numbers back up. But she certainly doesn't sound like a CEO ready to declare victory.
No, she was highly cautious. She warned her staff that the platform faces a long road to what she called durable growth.
Durable growth, that's corporate speak for we need to actually make money consistently.
Exactly. She explicitly stated that they must learn quickly and that the platform's fundamental economic challenges will not be solved by one single moment or one big game launch.
Right.
Alongside this warning, she announced a subtle but deliberate branding shift, changing the standard Xbox to an all-caps XBOX in corporate communications.
To signal a stronger, more focused identity moving forward.
No.
The all-caps rebrand is a bit amusing, honestly, as if they're just shouting the console name to project confidence.
It's definitely a choice.
But if we dig into the mechanics of this subscription strategy, I am left deeply confused by their long-term plan. They raised prices to increase revenue, but gamers canceled. They cut prices to stop the bleeding, and the gamers returned. But Sharma herself is warning about the long road ahead. Is the subscription model becoming a financial trap?
It might be.
They have built this massive industry-leading service, but it seems like they haven't figured out how to make the balance sheet work without scaring the audience away.
It really highlights the brutal reality of subscription economics, specifically regarding the amortization of development costs.
Because games are so expensive to make now.
Producing a modern AAA game often costs well over $100 million. If you are putting those games onto a subscription service on day one, you sacrifice traditional $70 retail sales. To make up that massive revenue deficit, you need constant, aggressive growth in your subscriber base.
You need millions of new people paying the monthly fee just to break even on the development costs.
Precisely. But there is a finite ceiling to the console market. There are only so many gamers willing to commit to a monthly subscription. Once a platform hits that saturation point where growth flatlines, the only lever the corporation has left to increase revenue is raising the monthly price.
Which they tried.
And as Xbox just painfully learned, the gaming audience is incredibly price sensitive. You raise the price, the perceived value drops, and users immediately churn. It is a delicate, almost impossible balancing act, and Sharma's memo makes it clear they are still searching for a sustainable financial model.
It is a precarious position for a platform holder. And speaking of hardware ecosystems, the sources mention a few notable developments on the hardware front that tie into this shifting landscape.
Yes, Intel made a big move.
Intel just officially unveiled their new Arc G3 handheld chips, which are designed specifically to power the next generation of portable PC gaming devices. This reinforces the idea we discussed with the Switch 2 earlier. Mobile architecture is becoming the dominant growth sector in the hardware space.
It really is.
And, in a funny contrast to modern hardware struggles, a Shigeru Miyamoto-signed Nintendo 3DS is currently up for auction, with bidding already rocketing past $15,000.
It is a perfect testament to the enduring cultural and financial value of legacy hardware, even as the industry pushes toward portable PCs and cloud subscriptions.
It really is. And looking at legacy, we need to turn our attention to what gamers have to look forward to in the immediate future, because we are turning the page to June, and the release calendar for the coming month is incredibly dense.
It is a highly compressed release window, packed with major titles.
Right out of the gate on June 3rd, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is finally breaking its PlayStation exclusivity, making its highly anticipated debut on the Xbox Series X and the Nintendo Switch 2.
Which is going to be massive.
The very next day, June 4th, we are getting the 7th Guest remake, bringing the classic atmospheric puzzle horror game into the modern era with fully rebuilt environments. And right on its heels, launching on June 5th, is the ground-up Gothic remake.
You know, if we step back and analyze this lineup in the context of everything we've unpacked today, it presents a really fascinating contradiction about where the industry currently stands.
How so?
Well, we spent a significant portion of this deep dive discussing how developers are pushing the technological envelope. We talked about Call of Duty forcefully and definitively killing off the PS4 and Xbox One era because the old architecture holds them back.
Right.
We explored engine upgrades, advanced Switch 2 AI upscaling, and Intel's brand new Arc G3 handheld chips. We are seemingly ushering in a golden age of incredibly powerful new technology that frees developers from past constraints.
We absolutely are.
Yet, look closely at the games the community is most excited to play in the first week of June. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the 7th Guest remake, and the Gothic remake.
Wow, that is wild. Every single one of those major releases is a remake or a reimagining of a game that originally launched decades ago.
Exactly. So the provocative question we have to ask ourselves as players is this. As the gaming industry finally severs its physical ties with old hardware limitations and embraces unprecedented processing power, are developers relying entirely too heavily on the ghosts of old franchises to carry them forward?
That's a great point.
We have access to incredible technology, but are we using it to enter a golden age of fidelity while simultaneously slipping into a dark age of originality?
That is a heavy contradiction to consider. We have all this unprecedented horsepower, the most advanced physics engines and upscaling algorithms ever created, and we are using it to play the exact same stories we experienced 20 years ago.
It's wild to think about.
It brings us right back to the feeling of looking at your backlog. I want you, the listener, to look at your own library tonight. Look at the games you are currently playing and the ones you are hyped to buy next month. Ask yourself, how much of it is truly a new experience, and how much of it is just chasing the ghosts of the past with a fresh coat of high-resolution paint? We're going to leave you with that to chew on. Until the next deep dive.